This is the Lumix S9, and it's unlike anything I've ever used. It's not a photography camera, I wouldn't call it a good hybrid camera, and it's certainly not a cinema camera. This camera has been built out to be perfect for content creators like me. I do this for a living, so after spending some time with the S9, what are the things that I love and hate about this camera? I can't begin this review without talking about the price of the S9. It's $1,400, the same as the Sony a6700, my favorite, one of my favorite cameras of all time. Not my favorite, but one of them. The S9's huge advantage over that camera, though, is that it has a full-frame 24-megapixel sensor. This gives the Lumix great low-light performance and that wide field of view that a lot of content creators are going for. Codecs-wise, there's an absolute ton to choose from, but your heavy hitters are 4K and 6K uncropped up to 30 frames per second and 4K 60, but this is only available with a 1.5 times APS-C style crop. While I do value uncropped 4K 60, I'm starting to come around to the idea that you don't necessarily need it, especially as a content creator, because most of the time when you're shooting 60 frames per second, you're going to be filming B-roll, and that's not a big deal to have a crop on. The camera shoots 10-bit in L-log for a beautiful image with lots of dynamic range, but the most impressive thing about it is the 6K open gate filming mode. If you're unfamiliar, open gate means that the camera is actually capturing an image from the entire sensor, just like if you were taking an uncropped photo, so you get a 3:2 video file instead of a typical 16:9. The reason that this is practical for content creators is that it gives you more vertical space to work with if you're wanting to repurpose content into vertical shorts or reels. It's worth noting though that there is no open gate 60 FPS on the S9, so anything you're filming has to be in real time. Open gate shooting has some great implications for anamorphic shooters as well, but that's well beyond the scope of this video. The number one selling point that Lumix pushed with this camera is their app connectivity and the ability for you to import LUTs directly into the camera, as well as just transfer files directly from the camera to your phone in a matter of a few clicks. Unlike other creator-focused features like skin smoothing and all that crap, I can actually see myself using this and taking some pictures on a high-quality camera like this and transferring them over to my phone to post on Instagram. The whole connection process with Lumix's app is really easy, and I love that it has a whole library of LUTs that you can import directly to your camera right off the beat. Of course, you can also create your own LUTs in the app and import those to the camera for use in one of the dozens of LUT slots available. LUTs work in both photo and video modes, which is great because I can film in log, which gives me that extended dynamic range, but also bake in that LUT for the ease of post-production and having my footage already graded. This is something you'd want to stick with doing if you need a quick turnaround though, because it doesn't allow you to record a unedited version of that log footage. Like I said, it's totally baked in. Now, when it comes to photo shooting, you can actually shoot a photo with a LUT or an editing preset on it and still have the camera write a raw file of the same image. So there's no worries about that on the photo end. Bottom line, this isn't gimmicky. It's not for everyone, but it also doesn't get in the way, and I love that. The S9 has hands down the best image stabilization I've ever used. First of all, it has in-body image stabilization, which means that the sensor actually moves around to stabilize the footage mechanically. Once you add standard stabilization, it of course gets smoother, and the strong stabilization is, well, even stronger. Those uneven stone steps that you see in the shot are what I'm walking on, just handheld, and it is that smooth. The most important part is there's no discernible warping around the corners of the shot at all, and I was filming at a wide focal length, right around 18 millimeters, with a lens that didn't have internal stabilization built in. Of course, it wouldn't be a creator-focused camera review if we didn't do a little vlogging test. I don't have any external microphone plugged into this. This is the S9. You're hearing the built-in microphone, and you know, it sounds okay, just like any mic. You're still gonna wanna use a separate microphone, especially when it comes to wind noise for something like this. But it's fairly usable, and it's good for scratch audio, just for syncing things up. The autofocus too has been nothing short of amazing for me. I know it's one of those things that people have criticized about this camera and Lumix cameras in general, especially compared to like Canons and the Sonys, but I don't see how this is performing any worse than my R6 Mark II, and honestly, it seems to be working even better. Like it's not doing any weird focus breathing. Also, this is the LUT. It's cool. I probably wouldn't bake it into everything. Color grading is one of those things that makes a massive difference in how your video looks. And while LUTs are a great way to make some quick adjustments or to bake something in, I've been on a mission lately to become a pro at manual color grading to get my footage to look as good as possible. That's why I joined Skillshare, today's video sponsor. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes taught by world-class creatives and entrepreneurs. You can learn anything from illustration to photography to productivity, but right now I'm taking a class all about color grading. Now, I'm not a beginner in this anymore, so I'm taking a class that's a little bit more advanced. It really dives into the color science of grading and gets me thinking a lot more in depth about how to approach different shots. But if you're a complete beginner and you've never touched a video editing software in your life, there's still plenty of classes that will bring you up to this level in no time. You can even share your finished projects to get feedback from teachers or book one-on-one sessions if you want some extra advice. The first 500 people to use my link down in the description or scan this QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so go do that to get started learning today. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to talking about the Lumix S9. Here's where we get into some of the negatives of the S9. Everybody praises the small body on this thing, and I mean, while I guess it's kind of small for a full frame camera, it's nothing crazy. Even if you pair it up with the all-important 18 to 40 millimeter lens, you're still talking about a camera that's got a pretty respectable size. It is smaller, of course, than my R6 Mark II, but I can pretty much fit them in the same bag with negligible difference. And if I want something that's really small, that's an easy carry, then I'm gonna choose like the Ricoh GR3 or the Canon PowerShot V1. The S9 also just feels kind of cheap. Like, the buttons are kind of loose and very plasticky, and it's also not weather sealed, so definitely not an adventure camera. There's also only one SD card slot, and you'll notice no viewfinder, which leaves you relying on the, not super bright screen when shooting photos out in the sun. When you combine this with the lack of a mechanical shutter, it makes it a really hard sell as a photo camera, especially since it only has 2 control dials, which makes adjusting settings quite difficult, especially when combined with my next little gripe: Lumix's menu system. The displays and settings are really not intuitive at all, at least not to me coming from Canon and Sony. I mean, it sports a ton of amazing features, but it can kind of clutter up the menus and make it hard to find what you're looking for. Eventually I figured it out. It only took like a day or so, but I do think that it would be pretty frustrating and difficult, especially for a beginner. Although I do appreciate that in video mode they use shutter angle instead of shutter speed. It's like a nice little cinema touch. One thing that's important to note about this camera and any other Lumix cameras is that they are on the L-mount system, which I personally have not had a great experience with. If you shoot L-mount, please let me know what the best lenses are for this mount, because I found it really hard to get a wide angle 2.8 lens, and I settled on this Sigma. It's a 16 to 28, but I really wasn't impressed with its sharpness. They may not be as expensive as RF or like the high-end E-mount glass, but at least with those, I know that I'm getting a good quality lens. All of that is to say, I am new to the L-mount, so I can't knock it with authority, but please research your lenses before you buy into this system. So, who is the Lumix S9 for? I think this makes a great camera for YouTubers and other content creators that don't need a whole lot of professional photo features. I haven't personally had any overheating issues with the S9 when shooting it, content creation style normally, but I have heard some reports of overheating if you're running it in 4K or 6K for a long period of time, like for a long form documentary interview shoot, so maybe I wouldn't use it as like a B cam for that. But the image stabilization makes it a really great candidate for use as a B cam on a video shoot if you want to get B-roll handheld. However, if you want to do a little bit more photography than just like taking Instagram photos or thumbnails, then I think you'd probably be better served in this price range with the Sony a6700, even though that is an APS-C sensor camera. If you want to learn more about it, you should watch this video right up over here, where I sing its praises but also kind of nitpick it a little bit.